a month August has been. Wow. The abundance, the constant need for watering and the feeding of the plants. Wow, it's just been non-stop, hasn't it? And obviously there's been lots and lots to harvest. There's been so much deadheading to do. Didn't think I would have to deadhead a vegetable garden more than I am my actual garden, but here we are. It's time for the end of summer plot tour. And what better place to start than harvesting in the polytunnel, which you saw me doing in last week's video. But well, things are growing really, really quickly. Look at these cucumbers. Oh dear, I'm overrun with cucumbers. There's another big one here too, but also a few weird ones. It's a good start. And it's felt like a never-ending run of tomatoes. And it's hard to think that in another month or so, tomato season will be over. And let me look at them now. Absolutely amazing. There's still a lot yet that haven't even started to ripen, but for the rest of them, it's peak production. Look at this. Amazing. I have been freezing lots and lots of tomatoes so that I can make a bulk batch of sauces when I have plenty of them. I water in here every other day and I feed in here once a week. Oh, look, whoopsie, I've just knocked one off. And so far it seems to have done quite well. You may notice even from last week's video that I have stripped a lot of foliage off of these tomatoes now. Forecast to be a really good week, so I'm hoping it's going to help ripen what's remaining on the plants. Look at the size of this tomato. This is my first burlesque beefsteak tomato, and I don't think it's completely ripe, but it is starting to split slightly on the top. So I think I'm going to harvest it now. Wow, what a whopper. Pretty certain that's going to be my biggest tomato of the season. These luffas in the back of the polytunnel continue to grow and impress. Really, really looking forward to harvest time for these. I've decided I want to make some luffa soaps, so I have bought some of the melt and pour soap sets ready. I'm really looking forward to that, so excited. And all of my dreams are really coming true as far as luffas are concerned, because look, a late pollinated one has started to form across the door, and my dream was always to see them dangling across this doorway. And it's so impressive how quick they grow, because this one here was just like this little one here, which I don't think has been pollinated last week, and now look at the size difference. A quick look outside the back door of the polytunnel, and this is the plot for my sister and niece. They've recently built themselves a Brassica cage there. It looks really good, doesn't it? Things are growing really well for them, including that sweetcorn there. It's got socks on now to protect it from rodents. Since my plot tour last month, I have harvested 4 melons, and this will be the next one to ripen. I really am so excited to be growing melons in the polytunnel this year. And they taste absolutely delicious. So they're certainly going to be on my growing list for next year. Are you growing melons this year? I know I've asked before, but if you are, drop in the comments the varieties that you're growing. In this polytunnel, I have these Arava melons, and then further along, I have the Minnesota melons, and I'm looking forward to trying those as well. Honestly, I've been blown away by everything that's growing in the polytunnel this year, and across the rest of the plot, to be fair. And the cucamelons. Oh look, one's already dropped off. I'm not overly fond of them. I don't like the toughness of the skin. Duncan likes them and so does Isabel. They've certainly been fun to grow. In this first bed outside of the polytunnel, the lettuces are continuing to ripen quite nicely. I think I'll take a couple of those in. These are little gems. Look at that, how perfect is that? Not doing so well with the radishes though, because something keeps eating them, and I don't know whether it's a rodent or whether it's birds. Having quite a bit of trouble with magpies. at present. But I have just seen that I've not spotted how big it's gotten. Is this patty pan? Look at the size of that patty pan. That's ridiculous. Amaranth at this side of the bed is absolutely spectacular. I'm so glad I'm growing that this year. Thank you so much for those seedlings, Kerry. If I move on to the bed next to it, you can see that these dwarf French beans have really filled out now, and this sweet pea archway, it just keeps on giving, doesn't it? It's absolutely amazing. Honestly blow my mind. And look at these zinnias. I really need to pick some flowers to take into the house this week. These zinnias are spectacular. They're certainly going to be on the growing list next year as well. So I need to pick the dwarf French beans. The climbing beans are starting to do their thing a little bit more now. I know it's end of summer, but they are getting there. And while I put these in the harvest basket, special mention needs to go to these teddy bear sunflowers. Aren't they absolutely gorgeous? Whoops, I didn't mean to take those petals off just yet. I have actually bought a bigger variety of these for next season called gummy bear. So the dwarf ones are teddy bear and the taller ones are called gummy bear. They're about 5.5 foot tall, so I'm really looking forward to seeing those ones next year. And then if I move to the bed next door, I'm quite excited about what's going on in here too, because this late planted sweet corn is really starting to perform for me. Got some flowers, the tassels are starting to come, so hopefully we might actually get some corn before the first frost. That should keep Duncan happy. I did have to make this sort of framework for it last week because we had such a lot of strong winds and I was really worried about them. So I've just sort of put something just to try and stop it being blown too much. I'm not sure how effective it really would be, but we didn't lose any, so that's the main thing. Nice thick stems on them, so they seem quite strong. Really, really pleased with them. And then at the other end of the bed, I am really struggling to keep up with courgettes. Look at the size of that. It's more like a pumpkin than a courgette. And there's another smaller one in here as well. That's more the size that they should be picked at. Little and large. The Monge 2 on the end of the bed have finished now. Trying to save a few of these pods to get some seeds because I don't actually know the variety of these ones, although I have bought some purple ones for next year. Easier to harvest and spot. Next to the sweet corn, the other beans in this bed are my borlotti beans, and they seem to be doing well, setting lots of pods. Obviously they're going to dry on the plant though, they're not for eating now. The next bed along, it looks like the cosmos is taking over. Runner beans are doing really, really well. I've harvested quite a few from them, and the beetroot are picking up, but I still don't think I'm going to get a harvest from them this year. They're picking up, but they don't look healthy. There's a weird dryness to the leaves, and there's no real sign of any beets forming anywhere. Moving right to the end of the plot, you might spot that one of the flowers in the bike didn't do very well. But the really exciting thing is, end bed here is one of my Brassica beds, and there's cabbages in here and the leeks that I planted out a few months ago, and I think one of these cabbages is ready to harvest because it looks like if I leave it much longer it might split. This is another cabbage that came from Kerry at Dog on the Plot. This is Golden Acre, and if you look really closely at the top here, this leaf here looks like it's just starting to split. So whilst it's not the biggest cabbage, I do think it's time to harvest it. And this is a moment of excitement not lost on me because it's my first cabbage this season. Wow. I'm pretty certain I'm going to find quite a lot of slugs in here. Take a couple of the outer leaves off. First cabbage of the season. There was a time when I thought I wasn't going to get any cabbages this season. None of my Brassicas have done really well for me this year, so really thrilled with that one. I do also have some red cabbage in here which are starting to heart up, but they don't look particularly healthy. But the leeks at the other end are doing really, really well, and these ones on the right, which are the Musselburgh leeks, I think I might have to separate them shortly. I did just put them in together just to help them to grow on. But if you remember, they were nothing more than little specks of grass when I put them in. I really thought I'd put them out far too early, so I'm really thrilled to see that they are doing okay. Let's move on to the next bed. Now look at this bed. From saying that I wasn't having much luck this year to brassicas, to all of these cabbages growing so well in here. And again, it seems like 5 minutes ago that I planted these out in between the spring sown shallots. And look at them. They're so healthy, so healthy. I've got red cabbages in here and Savoy cabbages. The only thing that's not doing so well is the tender stem broccoli at the end of the bed. There is some to harvest today, but what I'm really taking the cover off here to show you today is that I want to harvest some of the spring planted shallots. They are absolutely massive and I'm so thrilled with them. Take a look at these. They're quite hard to see because they're hidden amongst the cabbages, but look at that. And then here's some more here. Can't believe the size of these shallots. Wow, they're as big as the onions that I grew. Look at that! How can that be shallots? They're as big as the onions. The size of those! Is that normal? Even in the shops, I have never seen shallots this big. Never! How amazing is that? Wow! I don't know whether it's worth me ever growing normal onions again, she says when she's about to sow some next week, because wow! I just can't get over the size of them. Never knew shallots could be that big. And I will just harvest some of this sprouting broccoli. You can see from this one here what I mean. This was never going to be a broccoli head to eat. It grew like this, but some of the later ones are making little heads that do make it worthwhile harvesting. The Savoy cabbages at this end of the bed are just starting to heart up too. Might take some of those leaves in a couple of days, not today. All in all, I'm truly delighted with this bed. It's probably one of my favourite beds at the moment. Just so thrilled. It's probably a stark contrast to this bed. I'm starting to get a bit of bird trouble on the plot, and it's magpies, it's not pigeons. They keep pulling all the plant labels out. I come across in the morning and they're strewn everywhere. I'm not quite sure which variety is which on any of these things anymore. They've been eating the lettuces in here as well, and I could cover them, but I've got plenty of lettuces elsewhere, so I'm kind of leaving them because this seems to be their favourite place to come to. Swedes are doing okay here. I have thinned them out a little bit. I need to thin them out a bit more to see if I can get the remaining ones to grow that little bit bigger before the end of the season. And as I mentioned in the last video, the fennel here has run to seed, but it is quite beautiful. And you know what? It's providing a little bit of structure because, well, pea season is nearly over, so all of those structures are coming out soon. As you can see in the pea bed next door now, these peas are over. I did try leaving some on the plant to grow so I could save the seeds, but unfortunately the magpies found those. At the front of the bed I have my final succession of meteor peas growing, and they're doing really, really well. They're growing a lot taller than the peas did earlier on in the season. So hopefully I'll still get a crop off of those if the birds leave them alone. At the back of the bed, these alderman peas are looking pretty sorry for themselves. I'm not clearing this just yet because I have left some of the pods on here to go to seed, and I did direct sow a few later ones, so there are some more coming through. Not many, but there is going to be a small later crop on them, so they're just staying for now. In fact, these pods are probably ready to pick now. Can you hear that? They've gone papery. So I suspect that they are nicely dried up, but I'll bring some paper bags across that I can label so I don't get them mixed up with anything else. Not sure if you can make out these little plants at the back here, but these were the Kent blue peas that Danny entrusted me to grow to help build our stocks for, and they were doing so well. They'd grown, there was some lovely pods, and they were just starting to dry nicely on there, and then those pesky magpies came and pecked them all off overnight, and I could absolutely kick myself for not covering them to protect them from the birds. So that's a huge lesson learned for next year. I've had to apologise to Danny for failing at that final hurdle. I hope to be a better gardener next year. So if you've got any Kent blue pea seeds that you'd like to share for next year, please send me a message. Next bed along from the peas, I've still got the celeriac growing. There's more dwarf French beans, and those sunflowers continue to keep just giving us that final bit of a show. I'm going to be harvesting some of those seeds shortly. I'm not sure when celeriac are harvested, but they don't look big enough to harvest yet. They're looking super healthy plants. Look at all that foliage on them. And then if you look to the edge of the bed, these are those nasturtiums that I chopped back in the last video. Hopefully they're going to have a resurgence for us. Next to the celeriac, you can see that these French beans are doing well still. And then we're right back to the start outside the polytunnel with this first bed here. More of the teddy bear sunflowers, calendula, those other sunflowers at the end there, they really do need harvesting now. And in the middle, I have my butterbush squash. Look at that. They don't look a very traditional shape, but we have a few growing. If I just pan across here, you can see some more here which look a better shape actually. Same seeds though. Same plant, and that one looks more round though, doesn't it? They've kind of come into their own a little bit now after a very, very slow start. Cosmos not looking quite so healthy this end of the bed, but I did lose a few branches in the recent storms. Tied everything up, but I didn't tie the cosmos. Again, another mistake. There's no change in these planters outside of the fruit cage. The fruit trees are all doing really well. Put on some nice growth this year. Quite happy with them. It's an apple tree, a pear tree in the middle, and another apple tree further along the end. Now there's no change in the fruit cage from my last video, but from last month you can see that I've tidied up the strawberries, and the blueberries are starting to crop. So many more ripened. I took off loads last week and I need to harvest some more again. That'll be tomorrow's job. There's 3 new Autumn Bliss raspberries in the back of the fruit cage since last month's video. They seem to have settled in quite well. They've been having plenty of watering. And the sunflowers again in here have been absolutely spectacular, but they are on their way out now. Really, really loved having the sunflowers this year. I'm not going to need all of the seeds that I have on every sunflower head either. So what I'm going to do is save the ones I want, and then as they've dried up, I'm going to cut the heads off and I'm just going to lie them on the bird table and let the birds have a peck at them. There's more straw flowers in the fruit cage, and I have to say these are ones that I planted in here really early in spring because they weren't doing very well in the greenhouse and they did nothing for ages. And then all of a sudden, look at them. This pink one is absolutely gorgeous. So addictive. And I have to say, these later ones that are just starting to flower now, far more vibrant colours to them, and the foliage looks so much healthier. Really pleased with them. And the little grapevine, look at him in the corner. He's doing well, isn't he? Considering I thought he was dead a few months back. Doesn't the pumpkin archway look amazing? I'm so thrilled with how far it's come since last month. I don't know about you, but unfortunately when it's time to water the plot, I seem to water myself as well. Should wear my wellies. But if I just pick these up here, here's another sign of the magpies. There's more labels pulled out everywhere. Oh, they are monsters. Now, I don't know how much more these pumpkins will grow through the rest of the season. What do you think? I did really hope that they'd be higher up than this by now. Earlier on in the season, they looked like they were really struggling and they weren't doing anything at all, were they? So who knows, who knows? They're looking a lot better than they did. And there's plenty of pumpkins on there. We do have a selection of Baby Boo. Jack Be Little is growing in there, and also a Kuchikuri. And I have to say, some weird things are happening with the Baby Boos especially. There's some very different shapes even within one plant. So I don't know whether that's cross-pollination or whether that's just natural variation in the shape of them. And I had read something earlier in the season that said that the Baby Boos were inedible and they were just a ornamental pumpkin, and I have since read that they are in fact edible. So that is really exciting to know. Something else to try later on in the season. This one behind me here though is somewhat of a mystery. I don't know whether that's an Kuchikuri or a Jack Be Little that's been a little bit funky. No idea. So if you have any ideas for what's happening with this one, I'd be really, really appreciative. The other end of the pumpkin bed, I still have the outdoor tomatoes. There are some ripening on there. They've never grown very big, never been particularly healthy, but we're still getting a few tomatoes, so I guess that is the main thing. No sign of blight on them as yet. Fingers crossed. Again, don't know what variety this is. The Magpies do though. It's either Crimson Crush or Divinity F1. Not a clue. They like to keep us on our toes, those magpies, don't they? Across from the tomatoes, we have the mashed potato squashes. And if I peek under the leaves here, there's a few developing on them. I'm really looking forward to the mashed potato squashes to see if they live up to the hype. My sister is growing the baked potato, and I have to say I really like the colour of those. It's quite fascinating to see the mash versus the baked. I just got slightly distracted. I'll just show you who's looking at me right now. Can you see them? Peering over their gateway, expectantly waiting for Mama to feed them. Now if I walk back through this pumpkin archway, through the cosmos, we come to, there you go, the asparagus bed. Look at the size of it, absolutely huge. If I come down underneath here, you can see just how many spears these new asparagus plants have put up. That's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. Next to the asparagus bed, we have the ochre that I promised I was going to tie up in last month's plot tour, but, well, as you can see, I still haven't. And the dwarf artichokes. They're getting a little bit bigger, but I still think they're classed as dwarf, don't they? I assume these still flower at some point, but I don't know when they're supposed to flower. The flowers on the ochre are really, really delicate. They're so pretty. And I have to say, the foliage itself is quite striking in itself. Really, really looking forward to harvesting these at the end of the season. Not a lot else to show you down here. There's some cosmos growing nicely in front of the sweet peas on the sweet pea trellis. And then next to that is my Brassica tunnel. Let's have a quick look in there. I do love how easy it is to get in here. You can see the kale at the front. I've had a few pickings off of this now, mainly for kale crisps, because that is my favourite thing of all. Next to that are the tender stem broccolis, which are getting kind of one last chance now to throw something up that's worthwhile eating. This kind of shows you what I mean, that they've been doing all season for me. They've just bolted. They've not been giving me a proper floret at all, and obviously this piece is doing exactly the same, so I'm just going to pull it off. The not so red but supposed to be red Calibos cabbage is growing well, just starting to heart up. There's a purple sprouting broccoli at the back there. This plant here is a Romanesco. And then here we have my most successful Brussels sprout plant. And if you look really, really closely, you can see that a few sprouts are starting to form. Hopefully this means that sprouts for Christmas dinner are on. That would be absolutely amazing. Really don't know what happened with that red Calibos. Clearly the wrong seeds, isn't it? But we shall see what it turns into. I'm assuming a green Calibos, if there is such a thing. On the lawn area, these fruit trees just continue to grow, as do the calendula and asters that are growing around them. Putting on quite the show. It's been quite nice to see that in the cosmos, and lots of pollinators have been here. Obviously I have to do quite a lot of strimming around the table as well, so that's a job I need to keep on top of. But thankfully I do have this lovely steel cordless strimmer that I've bought now to help me with that. The fig tree is still alive, and there's a couple of globe artichokes hanging on in there, but they're not doing anything this year. And next to those are these recycling tubs that have some carrots growing in them. They're looking a little bit flat because I have just watered them, but the plan with these is that as the weather turns, I'll be able to pick these up, put them in the polytunnel or one of the greenhouses over winter. And then moving on from those carrots, the last things to show you on the vegetable garden are these pumpkins. Look at them, look how far they're trailing, and they're setting new pumpkins all of the time. I've got Howden on this side, the one in the middle is Polar Bear, and the one on the end is the Crown Prince, and I couldn't be more thrilled with how they look. This is exactly what I wanted. They've grown loads since the last plot tour, haven't they? Really, really looking forward to autumn to see how these turn out. But let's go and have a look on the main garden now. The predominant veg bed out on the main gardens is doing really, really well. At the beginning of the month, after I took out all of the remaining potatoes, these Brassicas did go in here and they're doing really, really well. Need to do a little bit of weeding in here, whether it's because of the grass cuttings, but as you can see, there's quite a bit of grass growing up. I'll probably get a couple of bags of strulch actually and spread that on top of there to see if I can suppress the grass that is coming through. I did think it might be a problem after using the grass mulch for the potatoes, but the plan I had over winter was to sort of put some cardboard down on here to suppress things. But then obviously I went ahead and planted some more Brassicas. So, you know, I've got to live with it now, haven't I? Calendula is looking great here, and the borlotti beans and the Greek gigantes are really starting to look great. But nothing has stolen the show on the garden quite so much as these sunflowers behind me, and I really don't think it comes across just how tall these are, but I do need to measure them. I've called in reinforcements, so Duncan of the Shorts is here to help me. I think this one might actually be taller than the previous highest one. This one measured 8.5 feet, so let's give it a go. Can you reach?
Top of the petal.
Top of the flower, yeah. Top of the petals. Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, right. So you'll have to take my word for it that I am exactly on 9 feet here. 9 feet. Wow. But whilst this one isn't in flower yet, I think this is going to take our crown this year. This variety here is called Titan and is supposed to grow up to 3 meters tall. I don't think it's 3 meters tall, but we'll see how big it is right now. Duncan can't actually reach the top of this one. He's having to put the tape measure on a stick. Go on then, let's go. Right, obviously it's not open yet, but let's just see where we're up to. All right, I'm touching the floor now. 9 foot, 9 inches so far. Wow. I hope it goes up a little bit further before it flowers. 9 foot, 9 inches. How's that then, Linda, for your sunflower challenge for 2024? Loving this cottage garden border. I don't remember planting a lily though, but it's gorgeous nonetheless. No idea where you came from. The weak and feeble sweetcorn is still looking just that. Although it has flowered, it has set some cobs, they do appear to have been pollinated. Still not holding out much hope for any edible sweetcorn from them, but I guess we'll know the answer by this time next month, won't we? So watch this space. This sorry looking corner is where all of the potatoes and buckets are, and they've died back quite a bit now, so I think I'm going to have a look at harvesting a bucket of pink fir apple and some King Edwards. I found a volunteer to help with this mucky job. This one is a bucket of King Edwards. Oh, it looks really dry, considering I've done lots and lots of watering. Oh, they're looking better. They're really pretty potatoes. Look at that. Definitely don't grow as big as they do in the ground though. We're just going to try this pink fir apple. Wow, that looks even drier. And then because it gets exciting when you start harvesting potatoes, I feel like we need to have another tub and tip out these sarcomeras. These are dying back. And just see what's in here. And that's all different varieties of main crops. I'm really pleased with that. I know they're not the biggest, but look at that. Pink fir apple, Sarpomera, King Edward's. It's a nice little harvest of potatoes. There isn't really a lot to show you in the greenhouse. I haven't sown anything, I haven't harvested anything. I'm going to start sowing from next week. The peppers are nearly over, so I'm going to be clearing that out next week. So I'll have a good look in the greenhouses in the next video. It's a similar story in the chilli greenhouse. The chilies are all doing really, really well. They've put on loads of growth, setting quite a bit of new fruit, as are the aubergines, but there's nothing really that I'm going to harvest in there this week. I'm going to do that next week because I've bought a dehydrator, so I want to start dehydrating the chilies so that I can make my own chili powder. But what I really want to show you is what's happening in this bed next to the greenhouses, because I've done it again, haven't I? I've forgotten to check for courgettes. Come on. It's kind of spilled right out of the bed, and I nearly tripped over this when I came in this morning, but I have, wait a minute, one marrow, and then I'm going to harvest this one, a little one. I think I can cope with that one more, but that's not what's really hilarious. Let me climb through it. Can you see that? Oh my life. It's absolutely huge. I hope it doesn't damage the whole plant trying to get it off. That's the biggest courgette I think I've ever seen. I'm guessing that's also called a marrow now. And just to balance things, let's harvest one more the size it should be. I'm just walking back round again and, oh my life, there's more marrows. I don't know what to do with all these marrows. Anyone want a marrow? Do you want a marrow? I already had about 10 courgettes in the house. You've just seen me harvest 2 massive round ones on the main garden. I really don't know what to do with them. I never thought I'd need a wheelbarrow to be bringing those harvests in. Absolutely blown away. After a really tough week personally for me on the farm. I'll catch you in the next video. Look after yourselves.